Okay, so here we are going to complete the first activity in your journey to learning Microsoft Excel. And this is an activity that I've taken from another resource and modify it to fit what I feel is best to learn Excel. And the assignment is called My Stock Portfolio, and it simulates someone who owns stock in various companies and how much you may have purchased that stock for and when it was purchased and its current price and value. So basically we're just looking at someone's stock portfolio. And traditionally I use Schoology to deliver my lessons. You may be looking at another program such as Canvas, but I'm just going to use this for the time being. And you could easily, if you're a teacher watching this, you could take this and easily put it into whatever program that you use for learning, for delivering your instruction. And if you're a student, you just may be looking at it in whatever your teacher chooses. So down here are the things that when I look for a grade, this is what I look for. You're going to have to create 8 formulas and functions, and I try not to use those terms interchangeably because a formula and a function are not interchangeable. And then down here is a list of everything else that I'm looking for that will help determine the final grade on this assignment. So we're going to go ahead and get started with the directions. And the directions down here in step 1, it tells you to use the video and or the given page. So the video would be the one you're watching right now. And it says from the PDF file linked below. Now down here at the bottom of this page, there is a PDF file. This one right here, My Stock Portfolio. You can download it in whatever program that you are using to access this activity. And then there will be a video down here as well. And again, this should be what you clicked to start watching this video, although the file name may be different by then. All right, so let's come back up here and let's look at the directions, because it also says enter the data and text as given. Okay, I am already going to give this to you, and it's going to be this file right here. And to get to this file, you're going to have to click a link down here. Now it's not here right now, but by the time, again, you're going to have to look at whatever program you're using, whether it be Canvas, Teams, Schoology, whatever. That link for this file is going to be down there somewhere for you to click. And what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to save this file to your storage location. When you get this file, it's going to be set up where you cannot edit this file within the location that it's currently given to you. You're going to have to get it into your own saving location, whether it be a OneDrive account, a flash drive, or whatever computer you're using on. Or you could also just save it, as I mentioned a moment ago, to your OneDrive account. So typically I would make you type all this from scratch, but in this instance I'm just going to give it to you. All right, so if you come back here and you look at number 2 on the directions, it tells you to use the video, which that's the video you're watching now, and or the 3Fs page from the PDF file linked below. Now, when you open up that PDF file that's linked below, it's going to open this up, and this PDF has got 3 pages on it. And this first page, it looks a little wonky right here. That's perfectly okay. Again, I am changing this from the way I typically teach this, and it's basically what we're doing is we're taking this file right here that I showed you right here. We're going to take that file and basically we're going to turn that into this. And to get here, we're going to have to follow the directions that are on this second page of the PDF. And there are directions down here because down here at the bottom it contains what your formulas and functions should be in the cells that indicate Formula 1, Formula 2, Function 8, and so forth. So you'll be able to have this, but I'm going to drag it off screen. So let's go back and look at the directions again. And I typically won't spend this much time going over directions. The whole thought is after you do a few of these, you kind of get the hang of what you need to do. And I won't spend so much time just going over all this. All right. So again, I give you a little bit of direction up here. But again, this first activity, I'm going to go over it start to finish. But some students will kind of get the hang of this. And because of that, you may not necessarily need to watch this entire video. It may be that you could skip through parts of this. And one last thing I want to point out to you, I've actually got, because I'm completing this activity using Excel online, I actually have this file opened up in the desktop version of Excel. And right here, you see this little note icon here that indicates that I'm actually editing this. It's kind of like I'm sharing it with myself, and really I am. And that just lets me know that I am editing this. And if I start doing things over here on this page, on that desktop version, I would see a symbol of some type over here. And the reason I'm doing this is because I want you to be able to see the differences between the desktop version of Excel and the online version, because if you are watching this and you are preparing for a certification of Microsoft Excel, certification is going to be on the desktop version. But if you're having to complete this right now on a Chromebook or on maybe a Macintosh computer, I would want you, and you're using the online version, I would want you to see the differences between the two. Because when you do a certification exam, you're going to have to use the desktop version of Microsoft Excel. So I'm going to move this off screen as well. And again, I'm going to try to bring it back up periodically so we can remember to take a look at that. So let's go ahead and get started. And by the way, now you see here that notation or that icon that I talked about, because this file now detects that I have done something on another file. And again, this is something that is a benefit of using Microsoft OneDrive, is that multiple people can have access to a file at the same time, and those people could collaborate and make changes to a document as necessary. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is, if you look at the PDF file right here, it gives you down here at the bottom what the formulas and functions are going to be. And if you look here, it tells you that the first thing we're going to do is put in all the formulas and functions. Okay, so it's probably not, this is the last time you're going to see this screen for a while, because we're just putting in the formulas and functions. So what I want to do is to bring this over here, and I want to kind of resize this a little bit. I want to make it where you could see at least the first 4 formulas and functions over here and where they go. So over here, first of all, in column F, row 4, if you go to cell F4, and again, in Microsoft Excel, your data is organized in columns and rows, and the columns are identified with letters and are listed first, and the rows are identified by numbers and are typically listed second. So if I said look in cell F4, that means look in column F, row 4. And what we're going to do is we're going to put in a formula. Now, a formula is just basically a math equation. You're going to do math. And in Microsoft Excel, all formulas and all functions start with an equal sign. So if you want Excel to do something, you're going to have to start it with an equal sign, and basically if you're going to perform math. All right, so what we're going to do here, the formula for this, if you look down here at the bottom, it says Formula 1. It's your initial price per share times the number of shares. Okay, initial price per share times the number of shares. And let me actually resize this window as well. And then that way we could see both of these at the same time, because it's not necessarily it's not really necessary that you see a full screen as you're working on this. So Formula 1 goes right here. Now again, all formulas start with an equal sign. So on my keyboard, I want to hit the equal sign. And Formula 1 says it's the initial price per share. So if I come over here and click on the initial price per share in this first stock that is listed is Apple Computers, we would want to come over here and click on Apple Computer, and it's actually going to put in the address of the cell that is in. Now that is in cell D4, and D4 is, in this case, it is called a relative reference, meaning that if we copy this formula down or across, this cell address will automatically update based upon the direction or directions in which we copy it. And we'll see that here in a moment. But you could also have typed in D4. Okay? Now, here's the thing. You might be wondering, why does it say D4 and not 6459 in the formula? Because right now you get to actually see what you're putting in. One of the keys about Microsoft Excel is you want to be able to tell what would happen if. What would happen if the contents of a cell change? Now, you know, the initial price per share, something that you paid for a stock, you know, that particular number, that's not ever going to update. But, you know, you would want to always use cell addresses whenever possible. Under very few circumstances, when you're working with Excel, would you actually put a number in as part of a formula. We'll talk more about that later on. So then the next thing we have to do is to put in a time symbol. Now, in Microsoft Excel, if you'll notice down here, I've got the asterisk on here because that is the keyboard, that is the Microsoft Excel version of a multiplication symbol. So if you look on the 8 key on your top row of numbers that are on your keyboard, there will be an asterisk key. You could hold down the shift button and hit the 8 key, and that would give you an asterisk. Now, if you're having to do this on a Chromebook, you may not have that, or actually you should have that, but if you're doing it on a Chromebook, what you would not have was a standard keyboard where you have a numeric keypad at the right side of the keyboard, and there is a button there that all you got to do is to click that asterisk key. And I accidentally clicked off mine, so I'm going to come back in here. And this is called the formula bar up here. Notice how that I could come up here and I could see the contents of what was actually put into the cell. All right, so now put in D4 times, and then the rest of this formula, if you look right here, it says times the shares. And I want to click on the number of shares that is owned of Apple Computers, you know, when we originally purchased it, which is right here. So basically, you've got a formula of D4 times E4. Now, that is our formula right there. So I want to hit the Enter key. You see a number of 28,419.6, and this is supposed to be currency. And right now, it's just not formatted as currency. And we'll talk about number formatting later. But if you want to scroll down here and look at this third page of this PDF, notice in this cell, you see the number 28,419.6. So this is just formatted as accounting. Actually, I said currency earlier. This is actually going to be formatted as accounting. That's in the rubric. We'll come back to that. But notice how in this cell, it says Formula 1 all the way down through Sprint. Now, by the way, I've been given this activity for a long time, and since the original time that I made this activity, Sprint has been purchased by T-Mobile. So if you don't take any concern to the fact that this says Sprint and then here it says T-Mobile, it's just that I've updated this. So anyway, we're going to copy this formula down. And one of the benefits to doing Microsoft Excel is that we don't have to go into each of these cells and do what we did for this cell on all of these cells. We can actually use this fill handle to copy the formula down. So This green box right here with the little square handle right here in the corner, this refers to your active cell. You know what your active cell is based upon this green outline that you see here, and that's the cell that you're currently working with. So what you would want to do is to come over here and grab this fill handle. Now this fill handle is this little button, it's this little square right here, and if you take your mouse and move it so that your arrow becomes a crosshair, you could click, hold, and drag this down. And it's going to automatically take those, it's going to take that formula and it's going to copy it down. Now, if you remember earlier, I mentioned the term relative reference. Notice how this says D4 times E4. All right. So we copied this formula down. So we're always looking in the same columns, but we're going to be looking in different rows. And remember, rows are identified with numbers. So if we look at these cells in here, we can actually come up here to the formula bar and see how the row number changed from 4 to 5. If I click on this cell, it changed to 6. If I click on this cell, it changed to 7 because, again, we copied the formula down. The column letters are staying the same, but it's the row numbers that are changing. Okay? Now, the next thing we're going to do, and by the way, there's really no perfect way of doing this. If I had to redo this activity from scratch, I probably would, but we're going to leave this as right here. Sometimes I would say it's best to go ahead and get a total for this cell right here so that you could easily verify that all of these formulas are correct and that you entered your information correctly. But I'm going to stick to the order right here. So the next thing we're going to do is go to Formula 2. So the Formula 2 is over here. And what I'm going to do is down here at the bottom, I want to be able to scroll to another portion of this worksheet, and this is called a worksheet. This entire file is called a workbook, but you can have multiple worksheets. And by the way, down here, this file actually has a copy of the original data in case you ever needed to go back. You made a mistake and you need to go back and get that. But anyway, I want to come over here to where it says current value, and we're going to put in Formula 2. And Formula 2 goes in these cells right here in H4 through H12. And it's the number of shares times the current price per share. So again, all formulas start with an equal sign. So first thing you have to do is on your keyboard, hit the equals key, which I should have mentioned earlier is directly to the left of your backspace key. And you can either click on the cell that's got the number of shares for this first stock, which is Apple. And then we want to multiply that times the current price per share, which is in cell G4. So you can either type in G4 or you can click on cell G4. And I'm going to try to click, that way you can visually see this on your computer. But also notice how every formula it's got, or in this particular formula, each of the cells, they have a different color, and that is to help you to easily identify and troubleshoot the different parts of a formula or a function, because some of these formulas and functions, as you can learn in this class, are going to become pretty complex. So then you put, now you can hit the enter key on your keyboard, and the total is 68,046. And we just want to scroll down here and see that this number is 68,046, and it is. Now again, we just haven't formatted this cell yet to look like this, but this has the accounting format, and we'll do that later. So again, all you got to do is to come over here. This is your active cell. Drag this fill handle. By dragging, I mean click that fill handle, hold and drag it down. And then you've got these numbers in here. All right, now notice that right here, I have got I don't know exactly at what point that I messed this up and I deleted the contents of this cell right here. But that definitely should not be a 0. And this is one of the reasons why you would scroll ahead and look to check your work to see if everything is correct, because obviously that is not correct. So in cell G6, cell G6 should have the amount of 6220 in it. So I'm just going to come back here and type that in there and put enter in there. And by the way, this is actually a good reason why, a good demonstration of why you don't put numbers necessarily in. You want to put in formulas, because what you could do is when I hit the enter key right here, look what happens to this 0. Notice how Microsoft Excel automatically will recalculate based upon the formula, and it will show you that this number should be 59,712. Okay, so if I look over here on my PDF, you see the number 59,712. Okay, so again, the number is correct. We just haven't formatted this sheet correctly yet, and we'll get to that. So then the next thing we want to do is we want to put in Formula 3. So Formula 3 goes over here in this category for gain and loss. And come over here, and we're going to put a formula in, and the formula, all formulas start with an equal sign, and the current value is in this cell right here, H4. So you can click on it or you can type that in. This time notice it's minus. So the minus key is directly to the left of the equals key, which is directly to the left of the backspace key if you're doing this on a device without a numeric keypad. I am using a regular keyboard, so I want to look on my numeric keypad and I want to hit the minus key, and it's minus your initial cost. So I'm going to come over here and click on this cell that's got my initial cost on it. So my formula is H4 minus F4. You could also see that up here in the formula bar. And what I want to do is to hit the enter key. And I get a number right here, and it gives us our total amount that we have gained or lost. Now, because we listed the current value first, this is going to be, and the initial cost is a smaller number. This displays as a this number displays in black. It's a positive number, and we'll talk more about that when we format numbers later on. But if you scroll down here and you look at your gain and loss field, you'll notice that the first one is 39,626.40, which again, that number is correct. We just haven't formatted it yet. So again, we need to drag this fill handle down. Again, on our active cell, drag the fill handle. You got to have a crosshair on there. So you got to make sure that you put your mouse just in the right spot, and you want to drag down. And then this formula will copy. And again, you can click on these and you see that the row numbers are changing as you copy the formula down, but the column letters are staying the same. If you were to copy this formula across, the column letters would change, but then the row numbers would stay the same. All right, so the next thing we want to do is we want to put in Formula 4. So I'm going to scroll back up here and make it so that we can see this. And Formula 4 goes in this last column, and the actual formula for that is your gain or loss divided by the initial cost. And by the way, I didn't mention this. You know, when you buy a stock, you always hope that it goes up in value over time. That's why you buy it. If stock constantly lost money, you probably would not want to buy that stock unless you were hoping that eventually at some point it would gain value again. That's what playing the stock market is like. So what we're going to do here is we're going to put in a formula, and all formulas start with an equal sign. And the formula tells us that it's the gain or loss. So it's this cell right here, and then it's divided by. Now, in Microsoft Excel, if you are doing this on a regular keyboard, regular computer with a regular keyboard, you can hit the slash key, on the numeric keypad, which is over on the right hand side of your keyboard, or you could hit the slash key, which is on the right hand side of your keyboard. It's directly to the left of your right shift key, right below the enter key. So if you look at the enter key, look down, that's your shift key, and then look to the left, that is your slash key. That's your division key. So in Microsoft Excel, you have to put in a slash to indicate division. So you do that, and then you divide it by your initial cost. So you click on the cell that's got your initial cost for this particular stock, which is an apple. And so your formula is equals I4 divided by F4. And again, you can type all this in manually, but for the sake of this lesson, again, I like clicking because you can actually see that, where if I'm typing it in, you can't really see what I'm doing on my keyboard. So again, I'm always going to try to click. When I can click, I want to click and not use my keyboard. So now I do want to hit my enter key, which, by the way, speaking of which, I could click this checkbox right here, the check mark, and that will finalize that formula. Now, down here, if I look at Formula 4, because you see the number that we gained right here, if I scroll down here and I look at what that number should be, it says 139.43%. Now, this number is correct. When you look here, you just kind of have to look at the first couple of numbers. You see 13943, and then here you see 13943 and a bunch of other numbers. We have not formatted this yet, and we will format that later. So I want to click on the active cell, drag that fill handle down here, and you see some numbers that start with ones, zeros, and even down here you got some that start with 4 and start with 5. And those numbers are correct. So what we're going to do is we're going to come over here, and then the next thing we're going to do is we want to put in our totals. Now this is going to make it easy for us to determine whether or not all of our numbers have been correctly entered. And normally you don't have this luxury of having a solution provided to you where you know what the answer is going to be, but for the purpose of learning Microsoft Excel, I am providing that to you. So what we're going to do is down here, we need to scroll up actually first, and we want to put in function 5. Now notice here I use the word function and not formula. Okay, and by the way, one other thing I just noticed on up here, notice how formula 4 actually comes down one additional cell. So I've still got this selected, and even if I didn't, I can come over here and click on this cell and drag this fill handle down. Now right now I get an error message on this, and I'll talk more about that error message real quick. Notice how it says I13 divided by F13. Well, let me show you something else that's beneficial with Excel. Let me double click on this cell and show you what happens. Notice how when you double click it, it highlights those cells, and it uses the color-coded text and boxes to help you to visualize what's what. And notice how these two cells are blank. So there's no numbers in here. So because of that, you're going to get an error message. Now, here shortly, we're going to take care of that, and this cell is going to magically change to the number that it should have. All right, so the next thing we want to do is I want to go to this cell right here, function 5, and this is in column F, row 13. So we're going to go to F13, and we're going to put in a function. Now, I'm going to notice how it says function 5 is that it is the total of cells in rows 4 through 12 above. Okay, total of cells in rows 4 through 12 above. So here I actually want to go full screen on this because I want you to be able to see everything. All right, so when I make my lessons, one of the things that I do is I try to use language that is similar to language that you might see on a certification exam. And for this one, you need to think back to probably third grade when you learned different math terms, and one of the terms that you learn total, and you probably learned, well, when you want to get a total, there's another mathematical term that may be used that indicates you want to get a total, meaning you want to add all of these up. And the name of that math term from probably third grade is actually sum. And that is spelled S-U-M. Well, one of the great things that Microsoft Excel can do is it's got a lot of functions that are built into it that will automatically perform a variety of calculations based upon what you tell it to calculate. So there's a couple of different ways that you could do this, but again, in trying to stick to you being able to see everything that's on my monitor, if you come over here, and you should be under this Home tab, but if you're not under this Home tab, click this Home tab that you see right here. And then all the way over here, you've got an Auto Sum button, and you also have an arrow. Now, I want to actually click on the arrow because I want you to see some of these other basic functions that are there. I just want you to know that they're there. I'm going to come back and explain these here shortly. But again, we're looking for a total. And again, in third grade or so, you probably learned that another word for total is sum. So what I want you to do is come down here and click the sum button. And Microsoft Excel, in this case, correctly identifies that the cells that are directly above that contain numbers are the ones that you want to total or get a sum of. And notice the syntax. This is called the syntax, or it's basically the procedure that you got to follow for putting in a formula. Notice how it says equals, and then it's got sum, and then it's got a left parenthesis, and then it lists a range of cells. Now, a range of cells is basically more than one cell. And what you're wanting to do is it's indicating that you want to get a total of these cells right here. Okay, and again, in this case, Excel correctly identifies the cells that you want to get a total of. Sometimes, based upon the worksheet that you're working on, it may not correctly identify. You have to be careful. So in this case, it is correct. So it says F4 colon F12. So basically what happens with a range, it lists the first cell that's in the range at the upper left, and then it will list the last cell in the range at the lower right, and those will be separated by a colon. And ranges can span multiple columns or rows or both, but typically it's going to be one or the other. So all you got to do is to hit enter, and it's going to give you a total here. And the number you see down here is 622,665.05. So what we want to do is to take a look at this, and we want to see if that number matches down here. And notice how this cell right here, it's 622,665.05. So the number matches, so that's correct. It just hasn't been formatted correctly yet. So the next thing we need to do is to come over here to this cell. And let's take another look at this. And here, it's the same formula. It's a sum function. It's going under the current value, which is right here. So basically, we need to repeat that process of what we just did. We'll come over here under the Home tab and click the Auto Sum arrow and click where it says Sum, because again, we are wanting the total in this cell as well. And remember, another word for total is sum. And in this case, that formula is correct. It's wanting to get a total of the range of H4 to H12. So you just hit enter. And then you want to take another look over here and see if this number matches up. 150. Okay, so this number does not match up. And this is actually a very good lesson. And what you would need to do is to go and to find out where might you have put in a mistake. Now, again, normally you would not have this luxury, but you know this number does not match. So we need to actually work up and see which one of these numbers is not correct in the current value. And when we look at this, the current value, let's split screen this so it may be easier to compare. The first number is correct. The next number, 26,639.40, that is correct. The next one, 59,712, that is correct. The next one, 13,672.40 is correct. And the next one is 993,314. Okay, that is correct. And then you got this one is 134,157. That is correct. Then you got 120,235. That is correct. And then you got this one is 71. Okay, so this is what the deal is, and I remember this now. And by the way, this is still a great lesson in checking your work, because yes, you're trying to learn Excel. This number is not correct. If you were to go look at this original assignment, way back in when you purchased this, and we'll talk more about number formatting shortly. This stock sold for $17.79 each when you bought it, when it was, remember I told you, Sprint. If you bought it today, I mean, you could look up this number right here. You could look it up on the internet somewhere. You can find out what the current price is. And when I originally made this worksheet, this was the current price of T-Mobile stock. But for the sake of making these numbers equal for this assignment, I want to go back and change that price, because see, this number is the one that doesn't match. Okay, this is the number that's wrong. So here it says 3371.20, and here it's much higher. So then, by the way, when you're checking your work, the first time that you find an occurrence that a number is wrong, then you got to look in the other direction and see which of those numbers is wrong. So when you look right here, that should be $6.02. So for the sake of this exercise, I just want to change that to 6.02, and I hit enter. And again, notice how these numbers automatically update. Notice how that, again, 33, this is $3,371.20, so the numbers match. But notice how much less that is worth at this time. And again, you got to understand, if this was still true, I mean, that's one of the reasons why Sprint was purchased by T-Mobile, is because they were losing money. And they still had some assets, so basically they sold their company to T-Mobile. So that stock, just for the sake of this lesson, we're going to leave this number at $6.02 is the current price per share of that T-Mobile stock. Although in reality, by the way, if you were to look up all of these numbers would be different, because these numbers, the current price per share is going to be based upon the current price on the day that I originally created this activity, which frankly was many years ago. So anyway, we're going to come over here, and now you look at this number right here, and it's $1,490,882.90, and that number matches. Again, it's just not formatted correctly yet, but the number does match. Okay, so the next thing is, and by the way, notice how right here, how this cell right here, how it just says 0, because now there's a number in this cell, and then this number is blank as of the moment. So any number divided, and when there's nothing there, you treat it as 0. So any number divided by 0 is equal to 0. That's something else that you learned in math class. So that's why there's no longer an error message right here, but it now says 0. So function 5 is, again, it's the same function, and you want to copy this formula over. So previously we have copied formulas down. Here we want to copy a formula across. So what we want to do is to click on this cell right here and drag this fill handle over here to the right one cell. And not only does this number update and you get 868,217.85, but notice how this cell right here has a number in it too now, because that cell that I showed you now has a number in it. So if I scroll down here, notice how the number is 868,217.85. And then notice how this number has 1.3943. And so when you consider rounding, again, the numbers have not been formatted correctly yet, but these numbers match.